Hello and welcome back to Nelson All Over Cards. Today, Villain Theory and I are back with another draft to promote the most recent Shadow of the Cast podcast episode that was all about protection. So today, we're going to be drafting our top five protection cards with a couple of caveats. But before we explain what those are, how are you doing, Villain?
I'm doing really good. Protection has grown on me a lot, as we discussed in the podcast, and I'm excited to see what picks we come up with because I think there's a couple of obvious ones, and then it's really like a mixed bag here, is how I feel.
Yeah, I there are a lot of really fun protection cards, and there's a couple of really good protection cards. So I'm excited to see, especially where the 7th to 10th picks kind of shake out to see where we go and what the strategy is. But we do have a couple of caveats. So we are not going to be drafting power protection. We have omitted that from our previous drafts. And we are also going to limit ourselves to two allies. We totally excluded them from the leadership draft, but we are going to be only allowing us two in this draft. So, yeah, anything that you would like to say before we dive in? And you do have the first pick because I got to pick first last time.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have the first pick. I've got one card in mind I really want to choose here. And what's interesting to me is I haven't fully made up my mind. I'm going to maybe fill it out through the draft. I don't know if I am going to pick two allies. I probably should pick two allies, but we're going to see how it goes.
I will to not show my cards too much. I also kind of was I when we were talking and you discussed like, hey, like maybe we should limit it to two. I was like, I don't even know if we need to limit it to two because like I have a couple of allies on here, but protection and allies are not the greatest cards. So we'll see how it shakes up. But I'm that's all I want to say about that before your pick.
Okay. Are you ready?
I am as ready as I think I'm gonna be.
Well, for me, there is one protection card which I use probably more than any other. I can put it in basically any archetype, any heroes deck, and I think the value is a little bit silly sometimes. And there's some scenarios where it's maybe not needed, but like in a general sense, if I was going up against like a random villain or like a campaign, it's probably always going to be there, and it's still going to be good against pretty much everyone anyway. And all this preamble is setting up a little card I like to call the Night Nurse.
Yeah, no, yes, good. It's so good. It's great solo. It's great multiplayer. But what does the Night Nurse do? Like,
Well,
does it do anything
yeah.
good?
Yeah, so what it does is it has an action. It's a one cost card, by the way, just a one cost card. So it's super cheap. Play it around anything else, and then play it again when it comes around the second time. And she will, as an action, heal an identity for one health. I mean, that's pretty good. So it's a one cost card, and how many times can she do it? Three times. So she's kind of equivalent to an endurance in a way. It's a one cost card that basically is going to give you free health across the course of the game, but also removes status cards, which is insanely efficient. So you're getting a heal and you can remove a status card. Removing a tough, maybe not so good, but removing stun and confuse though is extraordinarily powerful and just convenient, and you can do it three times. And against scenarios like with the Infinity Gauntlet and things, it's extremely good. Any scenario that wants to confuse you a lot, maybe like Alexa, but just generally there are stuns and confuses, and in solo, extremely good. Four player, unbelievably good. If I haven't put Night Nurse in a four-player deck, I've just forgotten it. That's my only reason I
Yeah.
didn't bring it.
Yep. Yep. It slipped between the cracks somewhere and you're gonna look for it when you get home. But no, I totally agree. I think you likened it to endurance. I think it's a little bit better than endurance even still because it's a flexible three healing, right? It doesn't have to be the
Yeah.
same person in those four-player games. Sometimes you really do need to pump that health up just a little bit. Or even in a true solo, right? If you're playing a perfect defense build, sometimes that one damage slips through and it turns off your dauntless and you no longer have retaliate or anything like that, and so it can help get you back up to that full health. I am a huge fan of the Night Nurse. One cost is really solid, so
Yep.
I'm happy with that. It's actually not the card I thought you were going to go with though, so
Ooh, that's interesting. Does that mean you're going to go for that card, or you just thought I was going to go for it? Are you planning to steal it? Tell us
uh
all.
probably a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Ooh.
Night Nurse was going to be in my top two. I thought you were going to go for another card and leave me Night Nurse, but here we are. So
Okay. Well, I'm really curious to see what you have next, but I feel pretty confident in Night Nurse. If you're not using Night Nurse very much, just try it. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah, Night Nurse is very solid. It's also like one of these cards that it it doesn't feel like the normal protection card in the sense of like a lot of the normal protection cards when I think of like the upgrades and supports on the table are triggering off of something else. Take no damage, draw a card, that kind of stuff, which may highlight one of my picks. But uh, uh, but Night Nurse is great solo, great multiplayer, fantastic first pick, good one.
Cool.
Cool. So I teed it up. I am gonna say my number one card here is gonna be Unflappable. Unflappable is a one cost upgrade. You may see a theme here. Protection does have a lot of one cost cards. Like I organized my binder based on cost, and it's like multiple pages of protection one cost. But Unflappable says that whenever your hero defends against an attack and takes no damage, you get to exhaust Unflappable to draw a card. Now, there's a couple of reasons why this is so good. Protection is all about, or probably the main archetype in protection. We talk about a couple of different ones in the episode, all about taking no damage or defending and trying to mitigate the damage coming in. The way that you do this most of the time is you either have a really high defense stat, or more likely, especially in these expert scenarios, is you need ways to increase that defense with events. So you have a lot of different events that are going to give you plus, like expert defense gives you +3 defense, but that's a card out of your hand. And one of the downsides of protection is you don't necessarily have enough cards to go into the hero phase with. So you spend all your cards in the villain phase, and then it comes to the hero phase, and you're like, okay, cool. What do I do now? And so, uh, wow, Unflappable. I almost said Unshakable. I was like, that's the Hulk one.
That's different.
Yeah, Unflappable gives you that card back. It's a rebate, one card. So if you trigger it twice, you're already kind of broken even. And every single time after that is pure profit. And you really want to be trying to trigger this. If Unflappable's in your deck, you're defending to take no damage. So you probably be triggering it very consistently. And so that card rebate, getting that card back, just shored up so many of the like negative downsides that protection had, especially early in the game's life cycle, that it just it just makes protection work. The perfect defense build works so much better.
Yeah, I think Unflappable is a great choice. It was on my list as well. Not quite this high up, but it could have been. I find it really hard to order them, honestly. And a one cost card that says draw a card and it doesn't have a like consumption, doesn't have a certain amount of uses. Like, okay, I get to draw a card, almost every turn. Exceptional, really good. And I think it's really interesting that both Night Nurse and Unflappable, I think, were printed in Doctor Strange's pack first, I believe, which is the first protection pack. So
Finally, a reason Doctor Strange did come with some good cards, and they were all great.
You thought he was weak, but these protection cards really save that pack. No, but yeah, I like Unflappable. I don't think I have too much else to add. I mean, it doesn't work if you go Alter Ego. It doesn't work if the damage goes too high. So it's got some. You have to work to get your card, but generally you're building for it if you're including it. If you're building for Unflappable and you see it in your opening hand, I see like dollar signs, or I guess pound signs.
Yeah.
I'm British in my eyes, and I'm like, yes, I'm going to play that, and it's really good.
Yeah. I would, and to your point of it doesn't work if you're alter ego, I would argue that 80% of the protection cards don't work if you're alter ego. Is just kind of the way that protection plays. But
Yeah.
I have to defend Unflappable.
It's good.
Yeah. It's also just like this is my favorite way to play. And so there is a little bit of my personal like enjoyment bias coming in here for choosing this as my top card, because I freaking love the perfect defense build.
That's probably why it's a little bit lower for me, because I recognize that it's an extremely good card, but I'm not
Yeah.
a big perfect defense kind of guy, so that's fun.
Nice. And this is a snake style draft, meaning that I get to choose again. And at this point, there you said it, and it's really hard to rank these cards. It's really interesting because I think, and we talk a little bit about in the podcast, how protection is so diversified in how you can play protection, and so it's really hard to give a holistic agnostic like rating to some of these cards, because Unflappable and Hawkeye is bad, right? It just is. And I think I'm gonna go with a card that is very strong, very fun, and potentially a little bit limited in who you're going to use it for, and that's Repurpose. I'm going to take it from you.
No, that was my next one.
I know, and I thought that's what you were going to take, and I was a little surprised you didn't, but Repurpose is so freaking good. And I mean, the despair on your face makes it worth the pick. And I don't even know if I have to argue it at this point, but see how upset Villain Theory is with this pick? That means it's a good pick. Um, Repurpose is a zero cost card that has you discard a tech upgrade. You ready your hero, and you get an additional stat boost based on the cost of that card. So protection has this whole other archetype where it's a reading and utilizing your stats a lot, and repurpose adds to those stats. So most of the time in true solo I'm choosing attack, but I have chosen thwart. That was kind of fun, and you just get to thwart for 50. But if you discard a force field generator, that's a 3 cost card, and you can do it when it has like one little thing left, so you get pretty much the entire utilization out of force field generator, deflect 5 damage, and then you get +3 to an attack stat. That seems good for a zero cost. You also get to ready. When I first saw this card, I missed the line where ready your hero. I was like, it's good. And then it's like ready your hero. I was like, oh gosh, this card is insane. And that lasts until the end of the round. So you get these attacks, or you get these bonus stats, and you get to just kind of go. And if you combine this with more reading, you can effectively go more. And the reason that I say that this may be a little bit niche is that there's a lot of heroes out there without any tech cards in their kit. That being said, hero tech cards are typically the last ones I'm targeting for a repurpose build. We have Plasma Pistol, which is a basic card, which is, I think, a really, really good one to trigger here because it's a 2 cost card. You get to ready up. And then you also have a lot of tech cards in protection. You have Electrostatic Armor. It's a 1 cost. So it's a really easy way to put it on the table. Now, you're not getting a huge benefit, but you still are getting the ready. You have energy barriers. You have force field generators. So you have a lot of options, and you can supplement the hero tech cards or the fact that they don't have any tech cards in their kit with the green cards, and you can repurpose those, especially once you've depleted them down to like that, maybe that last counter. And at that point, you repurpose the energy barrier when it has 1 counter. That's a really freaking good value. So yeah, I'm kind of happy that I got repurposed. That was fun.
I think Repurpose is a terrible card. Don't use it. Don't want to talk about it. And don't listen to Nelson. It's a bunch of
Yeah,
rubbish.
clip it.
No, I love Repurpose. I think for me, my favorite way to play protection in general, I really, really enjoy it. Is it going to be second space for me? That's the problem. Was it going to be first pick for me? And I use Night Nurse more. I think it's more generally just so consistent. Whereas Repurpose, you've got to set up to use it. Some characters do it better than others, so it's good on almost anyone. If you just build in like energy barriers, a couple plasma pistols, whatever. So it's a very, very, very fun card, a very flexible card, and quite a good strong card as well. So I think that's a really good pick. I'm really annoyed. The first draft we ever did, you took Storm from me, and I was furious. This is worse.
This is worse. Good.
This
Good.
Is the most,
good.
This is the most you've ever upset me.
Wow. Okay. I don't care how the votes come in at this point. I think I won. I mark this as a personal victory in the books for me. So that's nice. Last thing I'll say about protection, just if you have not played protection and you want to try it, I would try it out on Iron Man. I think Iron Man is a really good protection candidate. Most of these tech cards have lightning resources, which is Repulsor Blast loves. So it's a blast. So if you have not tried it, it is some of the most fun you can have playing Marvel Champions. Probably the most fun you'll have playing protection.
It's really good. I like Repurpose, and that's so annoying. I will not forgive you for this.
Oh, perfect. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so I get to pick two now.
Yes, you do.
Does it even matter if I can't pick Repurpose anymore? I don't want to play.
I'm going to pick the second copy of Repurpose.
And the third. That were my two picks. I know what pick I'm going for next. It's a little bit less flashy and exciting, but it is probably one of the most commonly used protection cards. And I think you don't run Unflappable without this card in most cases, unless you're Shadowcat. And that card is going to be another 1-cost card. You guys are going to see a theme. And it's Armored Vest. Very simple, +1 defense. And that's good if you're trying to defend because it's less damage, potentially every turn. It's going to make Unflappable trigger more. Other cards trigger more. It's just a good, cheap card. And you don't even have to run it with perfect defense, although it probably is most commonly run, simultaneously. If I'm a multi-aspect character, sometimes I just take this. Sometimes I'll just throw this in. I don't know, Spider-Woman, Adam Warlock. I'll just take it. It's plus 1 defense. Why not for 1 cost?
Yeah, yeah. No, armored vest was on mine. If you didn't take it, it was probably going to be one of my third or fourth picks. Like you said, it's not flashy, but it is almost essential to run with most of these perfect defense builds. Any character that has 2 defense in a stat, especially if you're playing expert and you want to run perfect defense, armored vest is going to be a part of that solution. Even 3 in a stat, I still run armored vest because then you don't necessarily have to supplement with a lot of your events and stuff. I mean, +1 is really good. You have combat training and heroic intuition as well, which are, double the cost in the other aspects. And so having it at 1 cost, I think is huge for protection, especially because of what we've said before, where you're depleting your hand. You don't necessarily have as many resources as you want to play some of these higher cost cards. So having this at a 1 cost is excellent. And yeah, it deserves to be on this list 100%. It's a very basic card, but it's a very good card.
Maybe the most boring card in protection, but it's also one of the most essential cards, and it's just
Yes.
really, really good.
Yes.
I'm glad it's 1 cost, not 2 costs, because I think they could have easily mimicked those costs across the aspects, but it's defense is in some ways worth less, but for 1 cost, it's really, really nice. If I could take that in just historic aggression, I probably would sometimes. So
Yeah.
it's good. Now I've got to pick a second card, and I'm kind of stalling a bit because I don't know what to pick. I think the 4 cards we've got now are extremely, extremely good here, and I could say any of these other ones are like next in line in my opinion. I feel like the 4 we've got are really strong, and I'm gonna have to pick something. Maybe I'm gonna use up one of my ally slots, and I've got
Ooh.
a whole bunch I'm considering, and there's different pros or cons to them, and maybe this will be a slightly unexpected pick, but I think it's a very good pick you'd be happy to have in your collection. And that is going to be the ally Jocasta. Jocasta, 3 cost, has 2 forwarding and yes, 2 consequential damage, but you can forward with her, then forward again, and you've got 4 forwarding, which is equivalent to a for justice. And yes, she costs 1 more than that, but she'll hold a card for you. If you can play the defense card during that time, it kind of makes up for it. And then you've got basically an equal cost for justice that you could split into 2 chunks, put it where you need. I really like that. But you can also just fort with her and block with her. And of course, the main use here is, she gets to find that defense card and hold it, which in terms of, it's kind of like a little bit of a refund on her cost because you get to use the card as if it was in your hand. So that's good. But it's a consistency thing. And that is really good. We talked a little bit in the podcast. I was saying, if you want to consistently draw a defense card, you have to put in like so many that sometimes you probably draw too many. And if you try and go less, you probably won't draw enough. Jocasta kind of solves that because she holds the card for you. And the final little, cherry on top, icing on the cake is that she can grab hero signature defense cards as well. And some of those, shield block, backflip, bulletproof bell, among others, extraordinarily, extraordinarily good.
Yeah. No, Jocasta is amazing. My favorite thing, and I'm kind of glad you didn't say it, of those hero specific cards, natural agility from Gambit. Ah, I love it. It's so good. And she was absolutely on my list. She actually was not my top ally though. So I'll be excited to have a little bit of a discussion after my next pick. But Jocasta is so good. Leading into that consistency, I think the main reason she was not my top ally is she is 3 cost, and a lot of times in protection that can be pretty. It's a big investment. Now you do get the rebate, you do get the consistency. If you draw into like a desperate defense or another defense card and Jocasta, you can use desperate defense to pay for Jocasta and then pull it. So you do have that flexibility. I think she's a really good ally. She fits in pretty much any perfect defense deck, and that 2 thwart is huge.
Yeah, there's another ally which is 2 cost, which I'm guessing is where you're going now, given your 3 cost comment. That I actually had above, and I was like, no, I'm gonna pick this one, but I think I 100% know where you're going now, and but I'm just gonna preset this. I'm gonna sabotage your pick. Does it synergize with protection? And I'm just gonna pass it over to you with that.
It 100% does. I think at this point we can stop the tease. My next pick is going to be Daredevil. Daredevil, and on I like you told me about Daredevil, and how good Daredevil can be, because this is one of the things that I have a hard time with when I'm evaluating cards with their in an LCG or in any card game, is Daredevil has an ability printed on him. I don't actually really remember what that ability is, but like it's not a good ability. I think it's whenever you defend, you can move a damage back to the attacking
Yes.
character or something. Uh, okay, that's fine. What the best part about Daredevil and what you helped me see is that he's a two-cost ally, which is incredibly powerful in this game, and two thwarts. So you can come in, you can thwart, and then you can block with Daredevil, and that's an incredible value out of an ally, especially in protection, where the biggest weakness in protection is going to be threat mitigation. Some could argue minion control as well, but threat mitigation, if you have side schemes, if you have a ton of threat on the main scheme, you're going to struggle. And Daredevil coming in, especially in a true solo, being able to thwart for two, especially potentially your hero is exhausted because you've defended in the villain phase, so you don't have access to a basic thwart. Coming in for two, being able to thwart like that, and three effective cost, right? So if you play one card out of your hand, if you don't have Unflappable, that's probably going to cost you two cards, meaning that you have three cards left, which means that you can pay for Daredevil. And so that one reduction of cost, I think, is so strong, especially in a lot of the ways that protection likes to play, where they're spending a lot of cards in the villain phase. Now, if we have resource generators, that all kind of evens out. But early game, when you don't have that set up, I think that two cost is so good, especially when it comes in with two thwart. And surprise assault, Daredevil can be there if you're exhausted and you want to maintain your health. So Daredevil is going to be my next pick. Yeah.
Yeah. Daredevil's really good. Everything I just said about fording with Jocasta applies to him. I think he's really good. Hey, a two-cost ally with two fording, amazing. A lot of people have put off the protection allies that have two fording but two consequential, but actually it works out pretty well in almost all of them, I want to say, at least the ones
Yeah.
I regularly use and I'm thinking of, but I guess that's why I use them. But yeah, he can fort twice, he can fort and block, he can. I do sometimes use his response. It's occasional, but he's a particularly good against quick strike. If
Oh,
he,
that's
something
funny.
with two
Yeah.
attack quick strike, you're like, okay, well, he'll take one, but then he'll send one back.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
fun. So he's got some stuff. So yeah, I like Daredevil. I don't have too much to say more than that. He's not gonna help you with your defense consistency, like Jocasta or combo with the defense cards in your
Yeah.
hero kit, etc. But he's just cheap, no kind of strings attached. You just play him, good value, good to go. So yeah, hugely good pick, and probably would have been my next ally pick if you didn't take it.
Yeah. I I I will say that I think that both Daredevil and Jocasta are typically allies that I look to remove from my perfect defense builds, right? Like they're good. They're both really good cards. Jocasta they both have their own little benefits as well, right? So
Yeah.
they're both good. I I like the two cost, especially in protection, but it's so much fun drawing a natural agility with Jocasta. It's just I'm gonna defend for 12. And you're like, ha ha ha. Like I get another charge counter and all the benefits. And as we get more defensive cards, especially hero specific cards, Jocasta is just gonna continue to get better and better. So
Yeah.
yeah, cool. I do have
Cool.
another one. I get another pick now.
You do.
And I've started to categorize my list in terms of like, my top tier, my middle tier, my lower tier. And we've taken all four of them out of my top tier at this point. And so we're looking in the middle tier. And I'm gonna go with there's so many good ones. I think I'm gonna land here mainly for flexibility. That's gonna be energy barrier. So energy
Yes.
barrier is a two cost protection upgrade. It is tech, so you can repurpose it.
No, don't bring
Building
that
that.
card up again.
No, I'm
Go on.
just gonna every single one of my justifications of my picks is gonna point back to repurpose at this point. It doesn't even matter. In the next draft, I'm gonna do it. It doesn't even have to be the protection draft. Um, but yeah, so energy barrier is a two cost, three effective cost upgrade that you put onto the table. Comes in with three counters. Whenever you would take any amount of damage, you can prevent the damage, and then you can choose an enemy to deal a damage back to by removing one of these counters. Why this fits in so many different ways and styles that you can play in protection, because not only does it prevent damage, that's great, but if you defend for 4 and the villain attacks you for 5, now you can still trigger all of your upgrades because you don't take any damage because of that interrupt. then you can use it to clear minions. You can use it to clear toughs because it does not have to be assigned. That damage does not have to be assigned back to the attacking enemy. It can be assigned to any enemy on the table. And so it's great when you can set up a minion with 3 health and you apply 2 damage to it. You block one of the damage when the villain attacks and you throw it before the minion ever even gets to activate. And so you can kind of interrupt the flow of the villain turn by taking out some of these minions, or heck, even if you have 2 minions, block one of the damage and assign the damage to the next minion. And so you can it's just such a flexible card and it's so good. It triggers all of your upgrades. And I think that is probably the best part of it. But I think the more I play Energy Barrier and the more that I play these perfect defense, the assigning of the flexible ping damage can come in so clutch, knock the tough off. And it's especially if you're relying on, your big hero attack cards to assign like the villain damage. The villain has a tough card, ping it off, then swing web kick into him. And Energy Barrier just it's I there's very few protection decks that I run without an Energy Barrier in it.
That's interesting. I don't feel like I run this card as often as you, but it is an extremely good card. And it's funny to me that an energy barrier to protect you is probably one of the most common ways I remove tough cards from enemies. Like, you don't get your barrier because of my barrier.
Yeah.
I just give a change of fortune stuff. It's just good. It's just.
Oh yeah, good call. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I use rubbish for change of. Don't listen. Terrible card. Nelson has lost the draft. No. It's good. Energy barrier is so flexible. Damage prevention with flexible damage placement is very good. 2 costs is affordable. I don't think I've got much else to say. Give me Repurpose back.
Yeah, give me back. Yeah. Nice. Okay, cool. So you are about to finish out your list. How are you feeling? You got 2 picks. But you get to choose both of them right now. How are you feeling so far going into these last 2 picks?
I'm feeling a little bit nervous because I had Daredevil higher on my list. I decided to go against my feeling. I do feel pretty happy with it still, but you've had some strong picks. Took Repurpose, which I'm honestly not worried about. I'm not worried about Repurpose in terms of power, in terms of how people will perceive it. Even though this list is, best can be interpreted as fun in, different things.
Yeah.
But I just wanted Repurpose, so I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling really bad.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Hopefully, the last 2 picks will bring the level up, though.
Oh, I'm enjoying the draft. I'm just mad at you. That's the where we're at.
Honestly, that's exactly where I want you to be. I want you to be enjoying yourself and mad at me. That means I'm doing my job correctly.
Okay, well, let's just get into the cards. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I am now at the point where I already said this, but I feel like a lot of these cards, like, even I have one more ally to pick correct. I'm gonna tell you guys the dilemma. Do I go for a trait locked ally, or do I go for a more open ally that I think is maybe slightly less good, but it's still good? How's this going to sit with you guys? But I don't think I went for anything trait locked last time. I feel like you went for a couple. I feel like it's my turn to maybe go into that a little bit. So so torn. There's so many good choices. My final of my 2 allies I can pick, my 4th pick here, is going to be Armor. Armor is good. If you've watched this draft before, I think Nelson picked Armor in best X-Men allies or something in draft we did. Yeah. It's 2 cost. It's a tough card. Then you can block. If you have the time, you can go for slightly slower tempo, and she can attack for 1, pop a tough, or she can fort for 1, and that might just be what you need to, efficiently take out a side scheme or something. Really, really good. Armor's a very high value X-Men character.
Yeah, I think the worst part about Armor is that she's locked to, you have to have the X-Men trait, but we have a lot of X-Men characters in this game now, right? Like, there's a lot of characters that can play Armor, and 2 costs with a tough, 2 costs blocking 2 villain attacks, amazing value. So
yeah.
Armor is definitely on my list. And yeah, she's really good. I very rarely find myself using her tough for not a villain activation. I like, sometimes you can thwart 1 or attack 1 with her, but I think that tough soaking an entire villain attack is incredible value.
The funny thing is, if you just fought with her through the tough, then fought again, you've got 2 forting from a 2-cost ally. It's kind of the Daredevil thing a little bit. Then you can block it with the final thing. So it's still fine, even if it's not as good. Very rare I ever play an X-Men in protection, and I don't just include this. Even if I don't particularly need it, it's just so good to have. It's just so Yeah.
Yeah.
And it triggers Utopia. Hey.
Yeah. Now you get to ready. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it armor's great. Um, cool. One more pick, and it cannot be an ally. What is that going to be?
Guys, I've got no idea. I feel like they're all really even. I feel like I just have good cards left. Uh, I might stick with the slightly trait restricted, but really good in the deck you use it in kind of theme here, because I feel like my other picks are like pretty good everywhere, more or less. Uh, and we're gonna leave the Avengers, leave the X-Men behind, and some characters are united in a different way. Maybe they have wings, maybe they can fly, but you guys know what this is going to be. It's going to be Ever Vigilant. This is
Mm.
a kind of no strings attached reading if you're aerial. And like, other cards which might have a special condition, leading blow. You have to make sure the boost card doesn't, nullify your damage. What doesn't kill me? You have to make sure you can heal enough to pay the cost. Ever Vigilant, as long as you have aerial, which you're only using this card if you have aerial, you ready up.
Ideally.
Yeah. Well, otherwise you have a big problem, guys. But yeah, you ready, and it's awesome. But it also removes 2 threat from the main scheme, which protection loves, and even in multiplayer where maybe you don't need to remove the 2 threat. No one's gonna be mad at you because you removed 2 threat. They're gonna be very happy. So it's just very flexible card. Really good.
Yeah. No, very good. Very good. And a lot of the aerial characters, they can defend, you can ready, or if you're going into like I'm gonna use my allies to trump block against these villain damages, you can get multiple activations and maybe you attack, remove the 2 threat, and then solo. That's most often enough from the main ready attack again. And so like it can be flexible, it can help with minion control, it can help with threat obviously because it's moving it from the main scheme. Yeah, Ever Vigilant is a really really good card for those aerial characters. It's the aerial characters are getting a lot of love, and I like that there was a time in the game where it's like, man, we need more aerial support, and I feel like we've gotten it now, and so that's also really fun. So good call on Ever Vigilant. I like it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure I was going to go for that one, but I do really like it. It's one of those. There are just some cards that when you see them enter your hand, I'm like, yes, I've got this. And even before I see what the encounter card is, I probably know I'm going to be able to deal with it to some degree because I've got that card, and that's really fun to have.
Yeah, nice. Okay, Ever Vigilant.
What
Actually,
if you?
it wasn't on my list. I think I burned
Oh,
myself by going too trait restricted last time. That I've swung way too far to the other side. I'm like, no, no, no. Every card has to be played by every single person. Now I did have, and one of the nice things about going second is you do get to talk a little bit more about the unchosen cards. I did have What Doesn't Kill Me on it. I think the restriction behind needing a physical to pay for it and needing to heal to stand up. I do like What Doesn't Kill Me. I think a little bit more than Ever Vigilant, but I think that when you can play Ever Vigilant, it's a better card to put in your deck, right? So
yeah.
if you are playing Aerial, Ever Vigilant takes that slot over What Doesn't Kill Me pretty much every single time.
Oh yeah.
Um, so I am coming into my last pick, and it's gonna be tough. Okay, Zoom kicked us off. We had to go through that shenanigans, but we're back, and I am here for the fifth pick. Now, I think this last pick is definitely going to revolve around threat removal because I think that is the biggest weakness. I do play a lot of true solo, and in true solo, the name of the game is trying to figure out how to shore up your weaknesses, and a lot of the times, threat is that weakness. And so there's a couple of ways that you can do that, and I'm kind of waffling back and forth between a couple of cards. The one that I'm going to go with um so I really like Hard to Ignore. I think Hard to Ignore is really good. That is limited to the main scheme, and I think as the game has progressed, we've gotten more and more ways to deal with that. And so I'm actually going to go with the event Not Today. So Not Today is a one cost event, which most defense events are. That's an interrupt whenever you defend against an attack, you get +2 defense for the attack. So this is kind of the formula for a lot of defense events. And this is what you want to see, especially if you're running into that perfect defense, which is also where a lot of this threat can become an issue. So you get that +2. And now if you're defending with an armored vest, 2 cost or 2 base stat hero, you're looking at a 5 defense, which is going to be pretty good against a lot of villains, right? There are your exceptions, of course. But then if you take no damage from that attack, you get to remove 2 threat from a scheme. And that's the key here is that it's not limited to the main, whereas you can trigger the main. And I've done that many times. But more importantly, I think the ability to target these side schemes is going to be really, really good. And especially now with like player side schemes, we have like established perimeter that is a 2 threat per player. You're playing true solo. This knocks that out. This gets you a tough status card. This allows you to take a next attack, or any of the side schemes that come out. Because I've played Claw and True Protection. It's annoying. There's so many side schemes. There are so many side schemes in a lot of these, and you just have to have a way to deal with and manage threat. And so, while Hard to Ignore is more consistent, you have it on the table. It's an upgrade. I'm not running decks without Hard to Ignore pretty much if I'm running a perfect defense. The flexibility of being able to point to a side scheme or the main scheme, as well as getting the additional defense, I think is going to put it in that fifth spot for me. That is my list. What do you think about Not Today?
It's difficult, but I need to make the pun that if it were me choosing, I would not go for Not Today. I'd say Not Today.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I
yeah.
like it. I like it. It's different. It's interesting for me. I was thinking about a defense card. I was really like between that and Ever Vigilant, and I was thinking Desperate Defense. So that lets you ready up,
Yeah,
and then you could potentially fort where you need to as
yeah.
well. So it's interesting. I do think the threat removal from Not Today is incredibly good. If you're running Nerves of Steel to pay for it, it's just beautiful. So I do like it. It's good. I don't run it that much, but obviously you play a lot more true solo protection than me, which is probably where some of this difference in
Yeah.
opinion is coming from. Whereas me, maybe a little bit more two players sometimes. Desperate defense might let me defend for someone else as well. So that's I think it's big competition.
True.
So yeah, I think our last couple of picks here, we've definitely taken picks that weren't on the other person's list. So there's an interesting one there. But overall, I think these are very very competitive lists, and I don't want to say I'm scared. I'm just mad. I'm mad about
Yeah,
Repurpose.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, I had Desperate Defense on here as well. I think that, Not Today, if you have a one thwart hero, then Not Today is going to be better value than the one thwart. But Desperate Defense is also very flexible. Maybe I just like the shininess that is the newer card of Not Today.
Ooh,
Desperate Defense is old news at this point.
it
Um,
is.
but yeah, did you have any honorable mentions that you wanted to shout out?
Yeah, I've got 7 different cards that I was considering.
Nice,
they were
nice.
they were so close. One of them was Desperate Defense, as I mentioned. That was so difficult. Like I think whereas I don't play so much Perfect Defense, it was my lowest one of these, but I still think it's good. Um, I had Flashy New Card Come Get Me, Bub, because I've been having so much fun with that. It's
Yeah.
been really fun to do. I don't use it with Perfect Defense like at all, really, but you can do, but just it's good. You summon the minion, okay, not so good. But then for 0 cost, you get that tough and that healing.
Yep.
Really, really useful. You can do different things with that. I really enjoy it. Hard to Ignore, which we mentioned, I put that on there as well. Not quite as high up there as Unflappable for me, but I'm still putting at least one in every single perfect defense deck, which means it's a very, very good card.
Yeah.
And the last non-ally card I actually had Med Team on there. I think
Yeah.
6 healing you can put wherever, like especially in multiplayer with other people's good allies and things. It's just really good. Certain signature allies are really, really good. And then the allies I had were Brother Voodoo, Rogue,
Mhm.
and Silk.
Nice.
A little
Yep.
bit of a mix.
I had all those. I didn't have Silk, mainly because I did stray away from a lot of those locked cards
I
because
know
that bit me in the butt last time. Which I don't think I honestly think it's an overcorrection or overcorrection, but I had Rogue on there. Rogue is so much fun. We were talking about this actually before we started recording the podcast, and the new Rogue ally in the Nightcrawler hero pack where she can get the stat bonuses from whatever ally or whatever character she touches. So good. So good. Incredibly good value. You can thwart for 5 with Professor X, and like you're never using that last damage that Professor X has anyways, so might as well. No, I'm glad that Rogue got a mention. I had Come Get Me Bub on the list as well. It's fun. I've had Come Get Me Bub has a lot of good value. It has also it destroyed me. So that's
Already.
why, yeah, like you summon Armadillo and you're like, oh crap. Like, so that's why it wasn't in my top 5. I did have Desperate Defense. And going through this, I was like, I need at least one defense event on this list just because I play so many of them. And so I'm curious. I think maybe Desperate Defense was the better pick. I think you've actually talked me into that, but I do really still like Not Today. I think they're both great. I'm typically running both of them. Um, then I did have Polaris on here. I had Polaris on here actually as a subsection. So it's like if you take armor and I want another, if I want another, I'm gonna sneak Polaris in there because she's not X-Men locked. She can give herself the tough, but I ended up just not going with that route.
I got to tell you a secret. Uh,
Yeah.
in our X-Men draft, I picked Polaris, and I was like, Polaris better than armor because I can like do 4 damage and I can block 2 attacks or something. I'm like, that's huge. I got annihilated in the comments. And people like, armor's so good, and I'm like, so I think if it was my true top 5, maybe I would have put Polaris in over armor for me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, I went for, I sold out. No, I sold out to the comments, and here we are. But I think Polaris is a solid shout as well.
Nice. Well, thank you all so very much for watching. What we need you to do now is go down into the comments and let us know who you think drafted the better top 5 protection cards, as well as leave a comment if you think that there were any cards that we left out of our list that you do think belong in these top 10. We did have an allocation of 4 allies, and we only used 3 of them. And so I'm also kind of curious if there are some allies that you think should have made it into this list. Let us know because those are always really fun comments to discuss and dissect together. But Dylan, so great having you on. Can you tell everyone where they can find you? All your links are going to be down below, but it's also really nice to hear you say it.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube. My YouTube name is VillainTheory, and that is probably the main place to look for me. But we've also got this podcast, the protection topic we're talking about, which you can find on Spotify, all those good places where you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, Villain. Let us know in the comments who you think won, and we will see you next time. At some point, we're going to do a justice draft. So,
Yes, we will. And I will not lose Repurpose.
nice. All righty. See you around. Bye.
Bye.